Do you know have you heard of the Muppets? And they used to have like a little person singing. Do 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 do.
PechaKucha.
Do 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 do.
PechaKucha.
Do 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 do. Help them out.
PechaKucha is a Japanese word for chit-chat and is the name of a presentation format created in Japan in 2003 by Astrid Klein and Mark Dytham, two architects looking for a way people could share their work quickly and simply in public. Since then, the idea has spread to over 700 cities around the world. At every PechaKucha night, creative thinkers come together and share their ideas with only 20 images shown for 20 seconds each. PechaKucha, a fast, fun format. Find a location, join the conversation.
So raise your hand if you're familiar with storytelling. If you use storytelling in your work. If you use storytelling in your own development and reflection. Storytelling is one of those things that student affairs folks know really well, but they most of the time use that for other folks. I'm here to talk about why storytelling is such a powerful tool for our own reflection, our own empowerment, and our own liberation. I'll demonstrate this by talking about one of my favorite questions, where are you from? It's a well-known scenario, and it goes a little something like this. So, where are you from? Well, I'm originally from Chicago, but I've lived in DC for the last 7 years. Where are you really from? Depending on my mood, I'll either continue the conversation or just end it altogether, because it's a complicated question. It's complicated for a number of reasons, but the one I'll focus on today is this. The underlying the question is this concept of home. Upon Googling home is, you'll get a couple answers. One might be, home is where you grew up. Home is your permanent address. Home is not a place but a feeling. Let's try that. Home is the Midwest, born and raised on the north side of Chicago, proud product of public education. Home is the DC area where I've lived, where I've gone to school, where I work, where my closest friends live, where I've learned to run, where my yoga practice began. But none of these answers ever really felt right to me. Maybe because my family never talked about where we were from. Maybe because the legacies of war were simply too much, and these stories only came up during funerals or for homework assignments. Up until about 2 summers ago, a friend of mine sent me a Facebook message that said, "Did you see this?" The Chinese Vietnamese Project. It's a project that dives into the identities and stories of first and second generation Chinese Vietnamese in America through interviews and photographs of places they now called home, trying to answer the question, what is the impact of multiple narratives on history, multiple narratives of history and place on our identities? So I met the project curator at the Vietnam War Memorial on a hot, sticky summer day in DC. I chose the memorial for 2 reasons. One, because there was backlash against the architect of the selected design, Maya Lin, a young woman of Asian descent. And 2, because my own parents were refugees from the Vietnam War. My paternal grandparents fled southern China under Mao Zedong's rule in the mid-1950s and settled in South Vietnam. My parents were born in Vietnam, and they both left as boat people in their teens. My mom remembers the bombing in her day-to-day before she left Saigon on a rickety little boat where she spent 7 days not knowing whether she was going to see land again. Now here's where things get a little murky, because I know my mom spent some time in a Malaysian refugee camp, and I know my dad's family was rescued by the Taiwanese Navy, and he spent some time in Taiwan before getting resettled in the United States. Fast forward a little bit to the early 1980s. Both sides of my family have settled in Chicago in an area I call the Argyle neighborhood, but most Chicagoans know as Little Saigon or New Chinatown. It became a new home to many Chinese, Vietnamese, Cambodian refugees. It's also the place that I called home and where I grew up. According to the 2000 US Census, approximately 1 million Chinese, Vietnamese, and Vietnamese refugees entered the United States between 1975 and 2000. Yet it wasn't until I attended high school and went to an ethnic studies class that I was able to say, I am ethnic Chinese Vietnamese. Through this process, I discovered that I'm part of a larger diaspora, the Hua community. They're Hua communities, which means ethnic Chinese or overseas Chinese all over the world, in the States, in the UK, in Canada, Australia. So what does it mean for this community to really be connected, especially with a history of war and multiple places where they now called home? So as a result of participating in this process, I am supporting opportunities like the Asian American Literary Review, which is featuring a curriculum on the Vietnam War. Yeah. As a result, I'm also taking a class. Academics in the house. I'm taking a class on Southeast Asian Americans, this resettlement, the second generation, and beyond. As a result, I'm engaging in a research and narrative project of my own to try to capture my family's history. It's a story that future generations really need to know, but are oftentimes left behind or made invisible in our history books. So I would not have ended up on this stage without having found 3 things to fully experience this liberation of storytelling. Even though my story is still in process, I think my process is also helpful for other folks. So 3 things I needed to find. The first thing was a place where I could be my true self, where I could be without reservation, without judgment, to really allow any feelings, emotions, answers, questions to come up. Number 2, I had to find my voice. My voice, the way that it usually sounds, naturally sounds with the words that I want to say, speak, write. And number 3, I had to find a platform. It's been writing, it's been reading other stories, it's been engaging with you all, and sharing my own story. So, is the question, where are you from, still complicated? Absolutely. Where does one call home if your family has been displaced from their homes 2 generations in a row? Where do you call home if you've never been to, seen, or known your homeland? So let me try to answer this question again. I am from a lifetime of stories. I am from a dream of a better tomorrow from my grandparents, their children, the future generations that they'll never meet. I am from 2 generations of leaving home just to find a new one. This is the legacy I come from. Thank you.